So this presentation we put together very quickly, so apologies for the presentation quality. A Wikibase for what? Diverse users at the edge of the graph. So we've seen in the presentations today and in other sessions some institutions doing some very interesting and important things. But there's important things done by individuals and community groups outside of that, and also just interesting technical things and personal projects that people want to work on. So I thought it would be good to highlight a few of those, since they're a lot of the people I end up having to talk to in the community user group. So there's a world of topics out there, I should know. I run Wikifur, which is for the furry fandom community, animal character enthusiasts. And we set up our own wiki in 2005 because we were like, okay, our stuff is getting deleted from Wikipedia, and really we want control of it ourselves and to maintain that ourselves. There's a world of topics. Not all are considered verifiable, notable, that sort of thing. Not just sandbox wikis, but also in terms of Wikibase, you can have a desire to have data that is separate from your main wiki. For example, we have conventions and we have lots of data on those, and right now they're in 6 different locations. Maybe you want it all in one place and to have it queried and generate those tables instead. So this is complementary often to an existing wiki. And not everyone wants to be beholden to the global community. As I said, we were like, oh, your stuff isn't suitable for our giant wiki. So institutions can have that. Maybe they want more control, more authority over their own data. They want to say, okay, I want this is our stuff, so we want to say only you can edit it, that sort of thing. There's community groups for different interests, pressure groups, particular diverse interests, and individuals. And in terms of community groups, the language is often tightly bound with the location. So if you have a group that is not entirely in tune with the location that they're in, the general society there, then that can be an issue that they want to share their, have their own place. So here's a few examples. The non-binary database, a compilation of concepts relevant to non-binary identity, such as neutral pronouns, identity labels, and non-binary people. So this is the sort of data that they find important. It's on data.nonbinary wiki, which was there to help organize the data in the main non-binary wiki. They are hosted on the Wikifarm Mirrorhaze, and I hope I'm pronouncing that right. And they were seemingly the first one to request a remote configuration, so one where the Wikibase client is not connected with the Wikibase repository, or at least it's connected, but it's not the same wiki. Their goal with the Wikibase was to improve a Discord bot with the tools for non-binary or gender-related servers. That's what they call chat rooms there. And they've done that with a Python script used to index. I think they had a lack of Sparkle backend on Mirrorhaze. So what they've done is download the data from the MediaWiki Action API and get that into lists, and I think they're doing it on instance of this. I recall I had a nice little chat with them. I don't know if I can actually show you this since I'm sharing that particular screen, but if you go to this convenient URL, I will share the slides later in the chat, and on the Etherpad, then you can go and see it. Then another sort of similar one, touching on that thing about people being out of tune with their local community. FemiWiki, which I cannot pronounce in Korean, unfortunately, launched as a community effort to counter prevalent misogynistic male-centered sources of Korean language information online that was also lacking in inclusivity towards most categories of minorities. So you have Wikimedians Korea, it helped set this up, Wikimedians of Korea. So it is primary Korean, but there is also a lot of information in Japanese, which is similarly, I would say, male-dominated society still, and in English, because there's plenty of English areas that are similar. They have a custom Lua module that I noticed them developing that was to generate a menstrual cup comparison table, for example. This is an example of information that they don't feel is properly represented and is useful to their community. They've also stored stuff on item on people and sites important to their community. And they're at femiwiki.com, and they've got I think they've got an integrated Wikibase configuration. You can see the graph down here. All of those editable pencils go to the relevant item, and that's generated by the Lua module. Yes, thank you for posting that, Brenna. Then we have Sweden Open Data. This is more on the individual scale of things. A Wikibase used for defining data sets we'd like to see in open data portals: public art, bicycle pumps, outdoor gyms, biographies, campsites, wind shelters, historical sites, runestone inscriptions, TV shows, ice observations, Swedish church parishes, the seat of the Swedish Academy, and public beaches, for examples. The thing I found interested in here is there were draft entity schemas for, in this case, bicycle pumps and wind shelters, which were not previously defined in Wikidata. Some of the others have relevant Wikidata ones which are linked, but not all of them. And you can find that on WBStack at sweopendata.wiki.opencura.com. Then there is this is an older project which isn't actually used a lot right now, but it's an interesting example. School of Design, Ambedkar University, Delhi. I found it interesting because it was a practical use of Wikibase for organisational data. So they had Cradle forms to create design studio projects, profiles and organisations. They're using manual schema definition via the Project Cradle page versus entity schemas. To be honest, having tried both, I think that may be the more practical method of doing it currently, especially outside of Wikidata, because you have to use the Wikidata format to define your entity schema if you're doing it in that way. And also, they have their searches for projects based on the focus themes, stakeholders, and the practices. So if you want to check that out, it's at sdes-aud.wiki.opencura.com. Hopefully someone has copied that down. If not, search for School of Design on Wikibase. Then there's Wikipen, which was another individual project, a knowledge base on everything that has to do with the Benwinian language, a fictional language. This is primarily edited by the founder and creator of that language. They've got lexicographical data, but they're not using the Wikibase extension for it yet. It might not be supported by Mirrorheads. So if you want to check that out, there's a lot on there. I don't know how many of you would be interested, but that's part of the point. It's there for people who are interested. Check out wikiben.tk. I think that's an interesting opportunity for them to maybe adapt to using lexicographical data if it's added to Mirrorheads, but I don't know if it would be suitable because it's a constructed language and there have been problems with that in the past. Then another example, the T-Rex taxonomy captures the taxonomy of the Tyrannosaurus Rex using the Wikibase software outside of Wikidata. The objective to create a model to capture taxonomy based on a specific use case. So they're like, okay, what can we do to capture this? Is there a problem with doing this? That sort of thing. And the innovation there, they have specimen data added by a Jupyter coded bot. I think the link here is on the, there is a link on there on the Jupyter bot in the slides when you get the slides. And that's T-Rex taxonomy with a dash, wiki.opencura.com. It's another WBStack one. And then lastly, I think, the FOMU photographic paper collection. So this was developed to support the Gebert paper project, which aims to safeguard Gebert's knowledge of analog proto paper. That's why they've digitized both their own collection of photo packaging and the photo packaging in the historical archive of Afkar Gebert. And I probably mangled those names. I apologize to anyone who's Belgian. Supported by the Flemish government. And I think there is a separate presentation on this. You might want to check the playback if you haven't seen that when it's available. I think they have statements added by user-side bot, and the issue with that, of course, is that if you add them one at a time, it causes slowdowns. So that's another case where, you know, we need communication of how best to do some things. So I'm getting to the end. Don't worry. We hopefully will not run out of time. Takeaways and challenges. So standalone Wikibases fill the needs that are not met by Wikidata. They can make technical advances and help the Wikibase community. Several of the projects mentioned have things that could be used by other Wikibases. But I think more effort is needed to surface and share this work. We haven't done a great job of that, in part because the registry's been down and everyone is, of course, most interested in their own projects. Hopefully WikidataCon will interest people in other people's projects. The shared services WP-Stack have been helping a lot by lowering the barrier for this, but there is still a need for developers to consider how best to enable individual use of Wikibases, because other developers need to develop on this, and they can't do it really on a shared surface. It won't be suitable for every project, especially private ones. We've just heard about Wikibase.cloud for open information things. Well, maybe you don't. Some of these might not want to be open. And my thought is maybe look for integration with Fandom Wikia, because they have a lot of community projects that are, you know, using data. All the Trek stuff, for example. I know we've already had a presentation about Trek, but there is, you know, Trek stuff on there. There's Transformers, that sort of thing. There's community challenges. Many Wikibases are only edited by one person. This isn't necessarily unusual for wikis, actually, and, you know, there is a lot of that. But I think there's more potential collaboration, again, if people know that these things are happening. Many are seemingly abandoned, often spammed, often with a large number of edits, especially if bots were used. So the host should plan for abandonment, and this includes the licensing. WP-Stack doesn't have like a default license or anything, as I'm aware of, and you know, you can assume something, but that might be wrong, and they might come back and say, hey, that's my data. So also deployment should have safe defaults, so like assume it's going to be used by some individual who doesn't really know what they're doing right now and isn't up to date, isn't aware of the issues that you can face with an open wiki. And lastly, the hosting challenges. Wikibase still has non-trivial hosting and admin requirements, and the cloud services do help at low end, but a focus on the community is needed. And also, you know, not everyone is going to be low end, and people trying it are not always at low end. Specifically, Mirrorhees doesn't seem to support Wikidata Query Service or Semantic Media Wiki on the performance grounds. You know, there's obviously issues there. Maybe WP-Stack technology could help there in terms of sharing. WP-Stack has more tools, Cradle and quick statements, but as I found out on my own wiki, ferry.wiki, open.curia.com, not all are well integrated or have examples of use. I do hope the Wikibase Cloud will continue the progress here. Here we are. Last thing, for the people who are doing it themselves, standalone, Wikibase doesn't support all the platforms that MediaWiki supports. I think PostgreSQL support is coming in the next release of the software, but I don't think it's on the Docker distribution, certainly. I don't know that. I'd be interested to know what any developers say about that. I still think that ARM64 is a huge opportunity, because the server offers around, especially in like China, for example, they're going to be focusing on these new Alien CPUs that are ARM64. There are, you know, Pi stuff, that sort of thing. There's still a huge learning curve. Many don't get past the extension install. I think more examples may help use of tutorials. And there's incomplete and confusing support or fallback for multiple languages. So English users might not be showing British English descriptions, and then you end up with queues everywhere. And the internationalization of item property is not available in special pages. So yeah. Thanks for your time. I know I've run a little bit overrun, but that's into my own other session, so there we are. Get in touch. I'm GreenReaper@hotmail.com or Wikinorn on Twitter and Telegram. The Wikibase community Telegram group is where I'm at. So there we are.